Hello, this is Dr. Charmaine Herman here again for the fifth part of Cultural Competence 100 for the Chiropractor. I'm excited to be here again and thank you again to Kyra Shakir. We're going to go ahead and get started. So today we're actually going to move into different applications for being cultural competent. So those of you who remember me from our previous meetings, again, I'm Dr. Charmaine Herman and I am um, the professor at Life University, as well as practicing chiropractic in Alpharetta, Georgia. Again, today our goals are going to be pretty clear. I'm going to go ahead and review some key points from our previous meetings and our previous class. And I'm also going to talk about how do we apply cultural competence to a chiropractic practice. I'm going to give you two ways in which you can do that. So if you remember, we talked about culture as being the whole person, the religious holidays, the arts, the clothing, the foods, everything that makes up an individual, as well as some hidden characteristics, such as how people feel about modesty and communication skills and things like that that make everyone different. But everyone has their own culture, and culture encompasses the entire person. When we talk about cultural competence in healthcare, we as doctors of chiropractic, we're trying to understand how the social as well as cultural beliefs of individuals can definitely change how they see health and how they see healthcare, how they approach us as doctors of chiropractic. That's a big part of what people look at, their culture and how does it relate to the chiropractic culture. Because we as chiropractors, we have our own culture, own philosophy. But people, as they have their own cultures, want to know how to understand chiropractic. And they have to understand it on the basis of where they're coming from, their own culture. So being cultural competent as a healthcare provider is understanding how these social as well as cultural differences can affect how people feel and believe about what chiropractic is and what we can do for them as doctors of chiropractic. So we also discussed bias, and bias is that inclination towards prejudice for or against persons or groups based upon ideas and concepts. Just when we're trying to think about being fair, we do have prejudices against and for certain things. So when we talk about bias, that's a big part of who we are as part of our culture as well. We talked about that bias is something that we actually learn through our interactions, our experiences with individuals. Our brain has a way of taking that 11 million pieces of information that comes toward it and putting things in categories. So our experiences actually build bias. So things that we've seen, heard from our parents, our families, our religious beliefs, things that we see on media and on our phones, advertising, things like that, all help to shape our bias and who we are as individuals. Bias can be definitely unconscious, whether we have an affinity bias, which is where we believe people that come from our communities or live where we live or look like us we have an affinity towards them. We're drawn to them. We actually embrace them more than people that are not from our communities. So chiropractors tend to have their own culture, and when we get together, we tend to relate to each other as chiropractors. So that's an affinity bias that we have for one another. But then there's also perception bias, and those are stereotypes and various ideas that we set up based upon things that we've heard, learned about other groups, other people, and what they do and how they are. That's part of our what we call perception bias. Then there's the halo effect that everyone from a particular culture or a particular neighborhood, a particular idea is great. Everyone is angelic. They never do anything wrong. We call that a halo effect when we talk about unconscious bias. And then there's also confirmation bias, the desire to be around people that only think like ourselves and never try to move outside of that small sphere of influence with just people who think like us and don't change their ideas at all, so we can keep our ideas the same as well. So that's what we call confirmation bias. And biases can form stereotypes, which is usually an overgeneralization of a group of people or concepts based upon a small interaction. So again, in this illustration, if I met older people, an older person who was very much computer illiterate and had difficulty learning how to use a phone and things like that, then I can make an overgeneralization or stereotype that all older people are slow of wit and cannot understand technology, and it's a waste of time to give them technology because they'll never understand. But again, that's having interaction with just one person. And from that one interaction, you can overgeneralize an entire group based upon that. So that's what we call stereotypes. We also see profiling as part of that as well, where certain people we watch closer because we've got this overgeneralization of that group of people, what they're possibly going to do. So again, stereotypes or profiling is something that we adapt in our culture. And again, we get that a lot from what we hear and see in the media and things such as that. So if we want to be able to manage our biases, it's really better to try to understand them, where do they come from. Take a self-assessment to understand how did I get biased in these areas. There are a lot of self-evaluations that you can do to see where your biases lie. In addition to that, you have to choose not to be biased, especially when it comes to treating people fairly, like being a doctor of chiropractic. I mean, I may have a bias against people with purple hair and piercings and tattoos. I mean, if that's my bias, then I need to know if those folks come into my practice, I have to put that bias aside so I can be fair as a doctor of chiropractic and treat them as a patient who needs my care. I also need to utilize trainings and skills such as this so I can learn how to come out of my shell, how to understand other cultures, maybe interact in communities that I've never interacted before, actually step out to actually try to experience other cultures and meet people from those other cultures so I can become better equipped to work with the communities, especially as our communities are becoming more and more diverse, which is the census says our census says for 2050 that the US will be a much more diverse community, which almost more than 50% of our communities being what we call now emerging minorities and not actually minorities, but almost 50% of our population will be our current minority population. So again, wanting to step out, wanting to understand, wanting to make those choices to be a better rounded human being and a better rounded doctor of chiropractic. So when it comes to being culturally competent, excuse me, one size does not fit all. I need to realize that some of my patients need different types of care, different kinds of management. I have many older patients, and I'm very slow with them. I write things down for them. I do everything I could to make sure they're comfortable, even getting on the table. I spend more time than if I do with my 2 or 5 year olds who just jump on the table. I realize that one size does not fit all when I communicate with my Asian patients, making sure they understand, or my Latino patients. So, as a doctor of chiropractic, when I want to be culturally competent, I need to realize that one size does not fit all. So being culturally competent again means first understanding your own community, learning how to acknowledge first your own culture and understanding your own culture, then acknowledging that and respecting other cultures. In addition to that, you want to also go ahead and spend time serving in other cultures. That's helpful as well. Refusing to profile or stereotype people based upon assumptions about their cultures. Be willing to step out of your own shell and learn about other cultures and continue to self evaluate yourself and see that you're growing and changing as a human being. All of these are ways that a doctor of chiropractic can actually become more culturally competent and better serve their communities and the many diverse communities that are out there in this country. So, how do I apply cultural competence to my practice? That's always a really important question because theory is one thing, but application is everything. So, I'm thinking about two things that I want to discuss today, discussing how to apply cultural competence to my practice as a doctor of chiropractic. Now, first of all, I want to first evaluate my practice, evaluate how I give my chiropractic message or how do I communicate with my community. So I tell people look at your social media, your advertising. What does it say to diverse communities? Are you having any messages that may be negative towards diverse communities? So take a look at how you share and tweet and like on social media. For example, who or what organizations do you actually like on social media or Instagram? Do you send Instagram pictures? What do your pictures look like on Instagram? When you practice, who do you regularly follow on your social media devices and things like that? People are looking at that. When they're looking for doctors of chiropractic, looking for everything, people tend to do a little research, and they're looking at who your social media site says you are, what ideas you espouse, what things you think. They're paying attention to very much what you're saying about who you are, just looking at your social media pages, whether Instagram or Twitter or things such as that. Also, your print media. Does your print media or advertising just show one group of people, whether purposely or unintentionally? I work with different organizations and I'm part of different organizations. I always notice whenever I get flyers or print media or brochures, they only show one group of people on their flyers or on their brochures. They don't show a diverse number of people, and that's the information that people are seeing, that you're closed off from serving a diverse community when you only use one group in your advertising or in your print media or in your commercials. So using diverse images sends a message to diverse communities that you're open to working with them. Again, if they see just one group of people on all of your advertising or just all of your social media, they're getting the idea that you don't want to be bothered with people outside of maybe your comfort zone. So again, what messages are we sending when we set up our advertising and social media? What about our office documents? That's also something really, really important. When we have documents in our office and brochures in our office, take a look at them when you look at your records and things such as that. Are your new patient documents available in other languages? So if you're serving a Latino community or you're serving a Haitian community, do you have any documents in those languages, translated in those languages, for your patients to utilize when they come into your office? That's a question I always ask doctors of chiropractic, because again, that shows that I know we expect people to speak English, and I understand that, but we should understand that some people English is a second language, or they have a minimum English capabilities, and that's something to think about when you organize your paperwork or make your brochures or have your intake documents. People tend to believe that if I'm serving a diverse community, everyone needs to be able to speak English. But the assumption is that people who do not speak English well or English is their second language are also illiterate. That is the assumption that's made. But what the fact is that most people who do speak other languages or have English as a second language are very literate in their own language as well as in their own written language. So by having documents available that's in their written language, can actually help them in filling out paperwork and things like that a lot smoothly, instead of you having to explain concepts, and they'll understand what you're doing if you have documents in their language. And I don't mean everything in your office, but I'm saying like your intake forms where you're taking information or taking data, things like that, that patients can read and fill out. Or even if you have brochures on your wall, it's helpful to have things in other languages so people who are in your office can feel more accepted and that you're open to working with them. You can also obtain document translators. We as healthcare providers can actually use a translator to translate our documents. And there's some that are free, some that are not free. There's some that are online that you can utilize. Even Google translators can be helpful as far as translating your paperwork into other languages for those communities that you serve predominantly. So again, I don't mean every language, but again, if you have a predominant Latino community, then you may want to translate some of these documents into Spanish or a specific, maybe Cuban or a Dominican, depending on your population that you're serving. Same thing if you have a Haitian or a French community, you can get certain documents translated into French or into Creole so your patients can fill out this paperwork a lot easier. So there are opportunities for you as a doctor to get documents translated. They're out there to help us to do things like that. So you always want to make sure that you send a message to the community that you are available, open and prepared to serve them. So even if you have patients who are not only English as second language, but also maybe they are visually impaired, you can also have documents in Braille in your office to serve the visually impaired patient that comes in and may need a little assistance, maybe better understand what to complete and things such as that, or things done by on recorder or by recording voices and things like that to help them to better be served in your in your office. So the messages we send based upon the things that we present to our communities tell them whether or not we are open to being a culturally competent doctor of chiropractic, or if we just want to see a certain group of people. People pay attention to those types of messages. So, on our next episode, I'm going to talk more about how we can apply cultural competence to the Office of Chiropractic as a doctor of chiropractic, as well as some other concepts that I've been getting some questions about. So, I hope to look forward to seeing you before the end of the year. Have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you, ChiroSecure, for your time, and thank you also for tuning in. Have a great day.